Salam alaikum, gents. I had the pleasure of engaging in a particularly enlightening discussion at work today.
What are we doing today?
Fade me up clean, high contrast. I want to look sharp enough to make neoliberals nervous.
You already do that just by breathing. So I saw that post, standing with Mamdani again.
Yup, and here come the usual hits. How can a gay man support someone from a Muslim background? As if being queer means I have to support American bombs as a personal security plan.
Yeah, they love that trap. Identity as weapon, not protection.
Exactly, it's identity politics without substance. People pretend to care about gay rights, but only to justify propping up dictators or excusing genocide. It's never about actual liberation, it's about optics and allegiance.
Same playbook, different parties. Democrats wrap the bombs in rainbow flags. Republicans wrap them in the Bible. But both answer to the same donor class.
That's what people don't see. It's not just about Republicans being bad or Democrats being cowards. It's that both use identity politics to distract from issue politics. Real, urgent ones like occupation, apartheid, military aid.
They'll celebrate the first black this, the first gay that. But if that person dares challenge Israel's apartheid or questions the military budget, they get buried, silenced, or worse, branded anti-Semitic.
Right, that's why Mamdani's dangerous to them. Because he's not playing the identity game. He's talking about power, budgets, war, empire. He's making people connect Gaza to Harlem, Ramallah to Flint.
And the scariest part for them, it's starting to land. Because people across identities are seeing through it. They're asking why we've got homeless veterans while sending $3.8 billion a year to fund military occupation.
And that's why they drag out the identity panic. Talk about LGBTQ rights in Muslim countries. As if that has anything to do with the $14 billion we're sending to an apartheid state.
Yeah, let me guess, but what about gay people in Gaza?
My answer, if they're in danger and need asylum, bring them here. But don't use them as an excuse to bomb their neighborhood, fund their oppressor, or erase their people. That's not solidarity, that's pinkwashed imperialism.
So you're saying identity matters, but not more than justice.
Exactly. Queer rights don't mean anything if we only fight for them selectively. You can't claim to be pro-women, pro-queer, pro-freedom, and back regimes that starve children, shoot journalists, and bulldoze homes.
You've got Democrats posting rainbows and Republicans quoting Leviticus. But when it comes to Israel, both sign the same blank check.
Because the donors write the rules. That's the thing no one wants to say out loud.
But we're saying it right here in this chair. And if the movement's gonna grow, it's gotta move past representation and into reclamation. Issue by issue, dollar by dollar, life by life.
Exactly. The old game says, look, we gave you visibility. But visibility without values, that's just a spotlight on a leash.
Clean, crisp, revolutionary.
That's what I'm paying you for.
You know, I don't talk about this much, but I'm a Muslim, British-born, converted years ago.
Wait, really?
Yeah, Islam's a part of me, just like being white, being British, being a barber. And here's the thing they never talk about. My faith commands me to follow the laws of the land I live in. And this land, it's a liberal secular democracy. That means I respect our laws. That means I treat everyone, gay, straight, trans, whatever, with dignity, courtesy, and fairness. Not just because the law says so, because my conscience does too.
That's real.
But just like I have that duty here, I believe Muslims elsewhere have the right to live under their own values too. To be sovereign, to chart their destiny without bombs above their heads or American flags on their streets. If the West really cares about LGBTQ people in those countries, then open the borders. Offer asylum. Let them come and live freely. But don't you dare use queer lives as camouflage for airstrikes. Don't justify the killing of millions in the name of saving a few. That's not liberation. That's hypocrisy wearing high heels and holding a drone controller.
You ever think of running for office?
I already do something harder. I give people the mirror every day. Some just need a haircut. Some are ready to see a little deeper. We are told the American empire is built on values, freedom, democracy, justice. But Zohran Mamdani is standing up and saying, whose justice? Because you can't preach equality at home while bankrolling apartheid abroad. That's not a contradiction, that's a lie. He's not just criticizing policy, he's exposing the very architecture of bipartisan politics, a politics that speaks in progress but walks in obedience. Obedience to war, to occupation, to Israel, no matter the cost, no matter the blood. And for that, both parties want him gone.
I've seen it before. When someone speaks a truth too large for polite politics, they don't debate it, they bury it. They paint Mamdani as a fringe radical. But what he's actually doing is reminding us of something older than this system. That justice cannot have borders, that our morals cannot stop at the water's edge. He calls for restraint, not retreat. He calls for peace, not passivity. He's not MAGA. He's not MIGA. He's something they can't quite name, because they've spent so long pretending it doesn't exist. A politician who isn't afraid.
Let me tell you why they fear him. Because Mamdani's not bought, he's not bending the knee to donors. He's speaking to people they forgot existed, poor, working class, angry and awake. He says we send $3.8 billion to Israel every year. Why? While teachers drive Ubers, while hospitals shut down in Appalachia, while veterans beg for basic care. We're stabilizing the region while our own country, on fire. They say he's extreme. But look at the reality. Over 30 million Americans without health insurance. Public schools with no heat in winter. Entire cities where rent eats half a paycheck. A generation saddled with debt and told it's their fault. And yet there's always money for war, always money for occupation, always money for Israel. Mamdani's asking the question they've been terrified to let into the public square. What if our foreign policy is making our domestic misery worse? What if justice abroad is justice at home?
And the thing is, people are starting to listen. Not just the left. Not just the young. Not just Muslims or immigrants or activists. Everyone who's tired of the lies. Everyone who wonders why the richest country in the world keeps telling its people, we can't afford to take care of you. But we can afford missiles.
And so Mamdani becomes a threat, not because he's violent, not because he's wrong, but because he dares to reorder the map. Not the map of borders, the map of power. He asks, what if we redirected public money away from weapons and toward dignity? What if justice wasn't just a campaign slogan, but a spending priority? To the establishment, that's not a critique, that's a rebellion.
And that's why they smear him. They won't argue with him, they can't. So they attack his identity. They weaponize antisemitism, Islamophobia, fear of the other. They scream about radicals while defending genocide. They cry terrorism while funding occupation. They flood the airwaves with labels to avoid the one word they can't stand to hear. Accountability.
This isn't about one politician. This is about a reckoning. A system that feeds the military-industrial complex while your kid's school runs out of paper. A bipartisan political machine that's perfectly unified when it comes to war and to Israel. A media structure that polices tone but never truth. And one man, Zohran Mamdani, standing up and saying, not in our name, not with our money, not anymore. This isn't just a shift in rhetoric. This is an existential threat to the system. And that's why they fear him. You feel it right. It's not just activists anymore. It's not just the fringe. It's the base on both sides. Democrats, Republicans, independents, people are starting to say, why do we send billions overseas when our kids don't have clean water? Why are we funding foreign armies when our own are homeless? That's not ideology. That's clarity.
Yes, and no one in power is noticing. Or maybe they are, and they're too scared to say it out loud. The Democratic base is pissed. The Republican base is tired of endless war. And neither party has figured out that this is political capital just sitting there, untouched.
Because to recognize it would mean admitting the game has changed. That voters aren't as split as they think. That morality, real morality, is starting to cut across party lines. And if that happens, the old narratives die. The war machines stall. The donor class loses leverage.
The irony is, this is the most American political energy we've seen in decades. People demanding their tax dollars serve them. People questioning empire. People connecting injustice in Gaza to injustice in the Bronx, in Appalachia, in Flint. And still, not a single major political figure has stepped into that space.
Because it's not safe. It's not scripted. It's not vetted by the consultants. But here's the thing. This is the future. Call it what you want: anti-imperialism, people-first foreign policy, global moral realism. It's growing. It's crossing lines. It's already here. They're just pretending not to see it.
And pretending comes with a cost. Because if they don't act, someone else will. Maybe not a politician. Maybe a movement. Maybe a voice too loud to be ignored.
Zohran Mamdani almost did it. He named the pattern. But even he hasn't said the loud part out loud. That for the first time in decades, there's bipartisan support, not in Congress, but in the country, for a foreign policy based on restraint, dignity, and justice. And no one's picking it up.
That's political gold. That's the real populism. Not flags and fear, but fairness. People power. Ending the empire so we can rebuild at home. And the parties are sleeping on it.
What scares them most isn't that people are angry. It's that people are waking up, and they're aligned.
And that's a harder force to stop than partisanship ever was. Because when both sides of the street start asking the same question, why are we funding war, not wellness? Then the old answers stop working.
It's already happening. The only question is, who's brave enough to lead it?
Hear what no one wants to admit. There are MAGA Democrats now, and MIGA Republicans have always existed. Different jerseys, same playbook. MAGA wraps itself in nationalism and rage. MIGA wraps itself in victimhood and unshakable loyalty to Israel. Both demand obedience, both reject accountability, and both think justice is negotiable.
That's the trick, right? MIGA says support for Israel is sacred. No matter what. Even if it means apartheid, even if it means genocide. And the Democrats, they've built their own MIGA wing, draped in identity politics and moral gaslighting. They say you can't question this, we're the good guys. But being the good guys means nothing if you're funding bombs.
This is the moment when identity politics collapses under the weight of complicity. You can be black, brown, queer, or first gen, but if you vote to fund war and silence dissent, what have you become? Representation without justice is not progress. It's camouflage.
Yes, and people are starting to see through it. Because you can't say you care about black lives in America and fund the execution of Palestinian lives abroad. You can't chant no justice, no peace in the streets, then vote to send another 15 billion to Netanyahu's military. This has to stop being about who you are and start being about what you're doing.
That's the shift. This moment demands issue-led politics, not identity-led performance. We don't need another first this or that, unless they're willing to take a stand against injustice, here and abroad. Identity won't save us. It won't rebuild our schools, house our unhoused, or stop bombs from falling on children. Only courage will.
And the only people who seem to have that courage right now aren't in office. They're on the ground, they're organizing, they're breaking the script.
The irony is, this is the most American political energy we've seen in decades. People demanding their tax dollars serve them. People questioning empire. People connecting injustice in Gaza to injustice in the Bronx, in Appalachia, in Flint. And still, not a single major political figure has stepped into that space.
You know what's wild? We talk about sovereignty like it's a sacred principle. But somehow, Muslim nations never seem to qualify. They don't get sovereignty. They get drones, they get bases, they get puppet regimes. They get stabilized.
Or occupied. Let's be clear, sovereignty means the right to self-determine. The right to build, to struggle, to shape your own future without foreign tanks on your soil. But when it comes to Muslim regions, sovereignty is treated like a threat, not a right.
Because actual freedom in the Muslim world would mean an end to Western control. It would mean no more dictators propped up to keep oil flowing and dissent silenced. It would mean no more pretending that US military bases are peacekeeping forces instead of imperial outposts.
Exactly, these bases don't defend democracy. They protect apartheid, they shield genocide. They guard kings and strongmen and regimes that torture, censor, and disappear their people. And we wonder why so many people say America's global brand is hypocrisy.
Because it is. We say we're the champions of freedom. But what kind of freedom is this? Where Palestinian women are starved, gunned down at checkpoints, bombed in shelters, while the same politicians who weep over women's rights say nothing. Not a word.
The silence is louder than any speech. When a woman in Ramallah is shot for carrying bread, where are the voices who shouted me too? When a girl in Gaza dies because the hospital has no power, where are the State Department statements?
They only speak when it's convenient. When the abuser wears the enemy label. Not when it's a Western-backed dictator. Not when it's Israel. Not when the victim is wearing a hijab and holding her brother's body.
We've built an empire on a lie. That our bombs bring peace, that our bases bring order, that our silence is neutral. But it's not. It's consent. It's complicity.
And let's say this plainly. Muslim people have the right to be sovereign. Not controlled, not occupied, not flattened in the name of security. They have the right to rise, to fall, to choose their leaders, even if they don't serve Washington.
If America truly cared about democracy, we wouldn't be building bases on someone else's land. We'd stop propping up monarchs who jail poets and crush protest. We'd stop dropping bombs and calling it liberation. We'd stop using women's rights as a smokescreen for war. We wouldn't be pulling out to abandon the world. We'd be pulling back to stop choking it.
Freedom means free will, even when it's inconvenient, even when it doesn't wave our flag or buy our brands. If we can't respect that, we've got no business preaching freedom to anyone. Not while we bankroll dictators and silence the people they rule.
Anyway, gentlemen, Isha prayer is at 10 p.m. I will see you there, inshallah. I need to go and work on my sci-fi novel. Chapter 42. Earth, a cautionary tale of donors, drones, and doomed democracies. excerpted from the Galactic Guide to Doomed Civilizations, banned in 42 star systems and 1 subreddit. The surest sign that a civilization is on the brink of collapse is when it spends more to arm foreign governments than to keep its own children alive. The Galactic Guide to Doomed Civilizations, Earth Entry, Volume 6, pg. 1984. The Mamdani Singularity. On Earth, a planet famous for inventing nuclear weapons before universal health care, one politician has caused a multi-party existential meltdown by doing something truly reckless. He told the truth. Zohran Mamdani, a life form of the rare species known as principled humans, asked the kind of question that gets you erased from polite media, unfriended by donors, and quietly removed from invitation lists at centrist brunches. Why are we sending billions to fund foreign military occupations while our own people live in poverty, die without health care, and go to school in buildings made of asbestos and broken dreams? This, naturally, caused immediate bipartisan panic. The sacred temple of unquestionable Israel support. In most advanced galaxies, support for apartheid is frowned upon. On Earth, it's funded, enthusiastically, blindly, and across party lines. Mamdani had the audacity to challenge this holy doctrine. He didn't just critique US policy toward Israel, he connected it to the economic suffering of everyday Americans. That made him uniquely dangerous. Democrats who claimed to champion justice and equity were outraged that he noticed their values short-circuited somewhere between Ferguson and Gaza. Republicans, who love chanting America first, panicked because Mamdani actually meant it and dared to apply it to Israel. You see, Mamdani's version of America first wasn't the usual chest-beating nationalism. It was a rejection of imperialism. It was about cutting military aid, dismantling the military-industrial complex, and prioritizing healthcare, housing, and education over bombs, genocide, and apartheid. To both parties, this was unacceptable. The Zionism paradox. On Earth, challenging military funding for Israel doesn't spark debate, it triggers deflection. Labels fly fast: anti-Semitic, radical, aligned with terrorism, un-American, anything to avoid engaging with what's actually being said. Never mind that Mamdani's critique is explicitly about government violence, systemic apartheid, and endless military occupation. Not Judaism, not Jews, not religion. None of that matters, because in this political game, engaged argument is a disaster for Zionists. All they can do is name-call, and only in the Western world, where rotten parrots repeat Zionist talking points without thought or consequence. And Mamdani didn't just point out the hypocrisy, he exposed it for what it is. This isn't foreign policy. It's legalized theft, taking from the poor at home to arm the powerful abroad. That statement set off alarm bells in every donor's war room. The billion-dollar connect the dots. Mamdani wasn't supposed to happen. Politicians aren't supposed to break the fourth wall. But he did, loudly. He drew the one connection no one in power wanted made. Bombs in Gaza and bankruptcies in Detroit. Drones over Rafah and closed clinics in rural America. He made it clear, the same machinery that funds occupation abroad is the one starving communities at home. Every dollar we send to fund apartheid abroad is a dollar stolen from justice at home. This wasn't rhetoric, it was a recalibration of the entire political equation. And that clarity is the one thing the empire cannot survive. System status, critical failure. In the Guide's Galactic Index of Doomed Civilizations, Earth now ranks just below the planet Vorgon 7, whose leaders once sold their atmosphere for stock options and suffocated at a shareholders' meeting. Earth's symptoms are clear: mass inequality, imperial decay, moral collapse hidden behind identity politics, a donor class writing foreign policy with a gold pen and a bloody hand. The bipartisan fear of Mamdani is not about policy, it's about power. If people begin to question why they're hungry while missiles fly overseas with their money's name on it, well, that's not just inconvenient. That's revolutionary. And revolutions are very bad for business. Status update. Civilization terminal. Cause of death. Weapons surplus. Wisdom deficit. It is easier for Earth's politicians to imagine bombing another country than fixing a hospital. That is why they are doomed. Guide AI, 42 seconds before Earth's final midterm election. The Galactic Guide to Doomed Civilizations. Appendix 7. Zionist talking points as repeated by Western media, lobbyists, and other non-player characters. When facts become inconvenient, switch to slogans. If they still resist, shout louder. If they persist, call them a threat to democracy. Intergalactic Public Relations Handbook, 5th edition, Chapter on Earth. How to market apartheid without getting cancelled. Slogan, God bless those who bless Israel. Translation, Divine favor is now available through foreign policy subscriptions. Side effects include drone strikes, spiritual confusion, and campaign donations. Response. If Jack the Ripper blesses Israel, does he get a seat in heaven or just a congressional medal? This isn't faith. It's a frequent flyer program for militarism dressed up as theology. You're not invoking God. You're name-dropping the divine to get into fundraisers. Slogan, Israel is the only democracy in the Middle East. Translation, we can ignore apartheid, ethnic cleansing, and censorship, as long as the ballot boxes are polished and the missiles punctual. Response, if your definition of democracy includes ethnic superiority, military rule, and stateless subjects, congratulations, you've just endorsed South Africa circa 1985. Also, if Israel is the only democracy in the region, that's not proof of its virtue. It's a grave marker for every other one US foreign policy helped assassinate. Slogan, it's anti-Semitic to criticize Israel. Translation, facts hurt. So we'll accuse you of bigotry and hope no one reads the fine print. Response, Judaism is a religion. Israel is a state. Criticizing one is not the same as attacking the other, unless your aim is to weaponize identity to defend war crimes. Many Jews oppose Zionism. That doesn't make them anti-Semitic. It makes them dangerous to hypocrisy. Slogan, Israel has a right to defend itself. Translation, it's not violence when we do it, it's defense. Response, every people under occupation has the right to resist. Flattening cities, starving civilians, and denying medicine isn't defense. It's a war crime in high resolution. If the oppressor has nukes and the oppressed don't even have a state, calling it self-defense is like calling a firing squad a misunderstanding. Slogan, both sides. Translation, we'd rather be complicit than uncomfortable. Response, when one side has tanks and the other has tear gas, both sides isn't balance, it's a cover-up. It's the moral equivalent of saying both sides during an asteroid impact. One is the asteroid, the other is the crater. Slogan, there is no partner for peace. Translation, we bulldozed the negotiations, but please blame the other guy. Response, every time peace was proposed, it was met with more walls, more settlers, more silence. The issue isn't the lack of a partner, it's the refusal to stop profiting from the conflict. Slogan, you're supporting terrorists. Translation, anyone resisting colonialism is automatically the villain. Response, no, what we are supporting is an end to state terror. Freedom, dignity, and basic human rights are not terrorist demands, unless your power depends on denying them. When every act of resistance is labeled terrorism, you're not defending safety, you're defending supremacy.